Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for ICIT's virtual briefing titled Inside FINRA's Financial Intelligence Fusion Center, Combating Cyber and Fraud Risk. We know you have a lot competing for your time, so we're grateful you chose to spend part of your day with us. Our goal is to make this a focused, practical 30-minute conversation that gives you real insight into how the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, is thinking about cyber-enabled fraud, complex financial crime, and the resilience of our securities market. For those of you who may be new to us, the Institute for Critical Infrastructure Technology, or ICIT, is a nonprofit, nonpartisan 501c3 think tank dedicated to the mission of modernizing, securing, and making resilient infrastructure that provides for people's foundational needs. We sit at the intersection of policy, operations, and technology. Everything we do is powered by a broad community of practitioners, policymakers, and partners who share a commitment to resilient infrastructure and trusted markets. To those of you who join us regularly and to those of you who are with us for the first time, I want to thank you for being a part of this community. Today's session sits right at the point where cyber risk, fraud, and market integrity converge. As cyber-enabled scams, account takeovers, and sophisticated financial crimes accelerate, organizations like FINRA are under pressure to meet adversaries at their own speed and scale. FINRA's response includes the creation of the Financial Intelligence Fusion Center, which has been in a pilot stage since the summer and is fully launching early next year. It's designed to enhance the way FINRA detects, analyzes emerging threats, and how it shares that intelligence to help broker deals, protect investors, and strengthen their own operations. In other words, it's about turning data and insight into early warnings and more effective action across the ecosystem. Over the next half hour, we'll explore why FINRA created this capability and how it fits into FINRA's regulatory and supervisory mission, and what it means for firms, CISOs, fraud leaders, and risk officers who are on the front lines of defending investors. I'm especially pleased to be joined here by David Ring, who leads the Financial Intelligence Fusion Center initiative at FINRA. David brings deep expertise for more than 2 decades with the FBI, where he held senior leadership roles in the cyber division, in which I was very proud to be a colleague of yours there at FBI Cyber Division, overseeing cyber analytics and operations, digital forensics and incident response, and private sector engagement focused on ransomware and other high impact threats. Now at FINRA, he's able to apply that background to help modernize oversight and strengthen the way that broker-dealer communities understand and respond to emerging cyber and fraud risks. Thanks again, Dave, for being with us. And with that, let's get started. Can you briefly describe FINRA's role in protecting the integrity of U.S. security markets and how cyber and fraud threats have risen in importance within that mission? And then can you talk about what led FINRA to decide to create the Financial Intelligence Fusion Center?
Yeah, happy to. But first, Val, thanks so much for having me here. I'm really happy to get to sit down and have this conversation with you and this group today. And it was a lot of fun when we got to work together at the Bureau. And I think we actually both held the same last position at the FBI before we both left. I don't think it had anything to do with the position in our departures, but just a funny coincidence. So yeah, I joined FINRA back in May, straight from my time at the FBI. And just an interesting time overall, as we've seen just these, scams, cyber issues just expand and expand and expand year over year, where we're seeing, more and more money lost, more and more investors and people scammed out of their entire life savings. And so moving from the FBI mission to a mission here at FINRA, where we really are working hard to prevent these scams from happening. And to mitigate any potential issues from significant cyber events as possible within our industry was a huge draw for me. So I was happy to make that transition over. In terms of FINRA's role and why we're moving into this space, into the intelligence space, which is a place where FINRA is a relatively new player in the intelligence world. So overall, our mission is to protect investors and safeguard markets here at FINRA. That's our goal. That's what we do every single day through our regulatory mission and the traditional things that people think of FINRA for as a self-regulatory organization in the broker-dealer space. So through that, we also gain an intense amount of insight into the fraud and cyber threat environments. And I think any organization that is looking in places where these types of threats manifest in such a significant way, over time start to realize that the information that they have, that they collect, that they learn through the work that they're doing in their everyday missions, have uses that can go well beyond what the main priority mission is. And so it's not a shift away from our regulatory mission, of course, here at FINRA, but it's a way to be able to help and drive toward that greater mission of protecting investors and safeguarding markets by trying to learn and pull more and more actionable intelligence out of the information that we collect and work through here in our organization, and push that back out to our member firms, because really they're on the front lines, right? They're on the front lines of these threats. These scams are targeting their clients, their systems. The cyber attacks are targeting them. And so how can we take the work that we're doing and help empower our firms and leverage all the data, all the information that we have to create timely, actionable, relevant intelligence for our member firms? And that's really at the core of what FINRA is looking to do with the Financial Intelligence Fusion Center in particular. And I think it's just a natural progression of our broader mission, recognizing that we have a lot that we can add into the threat space by leveraging the information and turning that into truly actionable intelligence for ourselves, for our member firms, and for other partners.
Now, that makes a lot of sense. Can you let's dig into it though a little bit, and can you walk us through, so what is it going to be like day to day at the Fusion Center, and how if you look at an emerging threat, how might that move through the intake to analysis to intelligence for your firms? Yeah. And how do you work with these firms with information flows that are going both ways while still protecting their data privacy and governance obligations?
Yeah, absolutely. Really, at its core, the Financial Intelligence Fusion Center, and I'll say FIFC for the rest of our conversation, just to save time, yes, is intended to be a bidirectional information sharing center, right? Where FINRA already has an intelligence team here, where we're pushing out all sorts of different intelligence surrounding cyber and fraud threats. We want to be more effective at getting that information out, right? So one aspect of that is it's a place where our member firms can get all of that intelligence in one place, get it pushed to them, just make it easier, make it more efficient and streamlined as a process. But when I say bidirectional, it also means that we're hoping to gain insights from our member firms through the sharing of intelligence, because again, they're the ones at the front lines of these threats, seeing that information and seeing those threats manifest. And when they see things, and you mentioned how do we work through an emerging threat, right? So we'll of course, we have fantastic subject matter experts here across the spectrum of threats that we're looking at FINRA, who do incredible work, but that's one group. There are, we have over 3,200 member firms. Many of them have their own teams looking at these threats, right? And so when they observe something, we want them to be able to easily, quickly, and without concern share that information back with us, so that we can take it and, as good faith actors, try to build that into maybe some aspect of a threat picture that we have. And when we talk about emerging threats, oftentimes we all start to see slight changes happening. Maybe it's a change in a tactic for a cyber actor. Maybe they're moving to a different access vector. Maybe they're just changing. Maybe they're going backwards in time. Sometimes we see, like, for a long time there was a lot of further development on technical efforts by threat actors to get into folks' systems, and then we see a swing back to much more attention being paid to social engineering as kind of the core aspect behind it. And when you start to see some of those changes manifest, we know we're only seeing a small part of that. So when we have member firms that see it too, we want to ask them, are you seeing this? We want them to share with us what they're seeing. And that can really fill some significant intelligence gaps that we have, not just at FINRA, but across our industry, and beyond our industry in many cases, especially when we talk about cyber threats, but even fraud threats as well. And so that information comes into the Financial Intelligence Fusion Center. We have analysts here who are going to take that information, triage it. We're going to look across the intelligence and information that FINRA has in our data sets, probably go back and ask other member firms if they're seeing something similar. And if they share additional intelligence with us, we aggregate that. We put some real solid analysis and context around it, and in a timely way, meaning not weeks, not months, but in days or hours, depending on the level of the threat. If it's a more tactical threat, we have to get information back out, or if it's something that this emerging threat where we're observing a change, get that information back out quickly to all of our member firms so that everybody can benefit from it, not just the 6 or 10 or 12 firms that maybe saw this or have those high-level resources to work on these threats. Because you have to remember, in our industry, there are some really small broker-dealers out there that don't have these huge intelligence departments or cyber departments. There are folks who are wearing a lot of different hats there, and we want to be a resource for them and leverage all the access and resources that we have collectively so that we can raise that level of capability across our industry.
And that makes sense. And from your vantage point, how are cyber-enabled frauds and complex financial crimes evolving over the broker-dealer ecosystem? What changes are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that we have to that we're seeing across the board, right? And it's with these fraud threats and these scams that we're seeing. It's also with cyber threats. I think there's a lot of back to basics, right? Getting away from, in many cases, those really, really complex. Now, there are certainly threat actors there committing very, very complex securities fraud and other frauds and cyber attacks. But we see the scaling of it growing significantly as the barrier to entry lowers significantly for threat actors. They don't have to be industry experts. They don't have to be cyber technical experts. They have to be able to gain the trust of somebody, right? And elder fraud is a major issue that we all see, and something that across society we've been trying to deal with. And so there's a lot of progress that we can make in things like educating people and getting that awareness out there, because again, the scalability has grown significantly. At the same time, there are things that we all, if collectively coming together, and this is the power of a fusion center. I think anybody that's ever worked in that type of environment understands that when there are these overwhelming threats, right? And the fraud and cyber threat environment is it's probably an understatement to say it's an overwhelming threat environment. All of the things that we see manifesting across that ecosystem, especially how it's expanded over the past decade or so. It's just not something we can address alone. It's not something that FINRA or a member firm or the SEC or the FBI or CISA or whomever we're talking about can handle just on their own, right? We need extreme collaboration to be able to get ourselves to a point where we're seeing across the threat environment and can actively take measures to not only mitigate threats but disrupt threats and defend against them. And so that's something that we're asking ourselves, not just within FINRA. We're asking our member firms, we're asking our partners in government and in private industry outside of our specific sector here to come together and work together to fight these threats collectively.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are you seeing what are you seeing that is making the most impact on investors, especially retail investors and vulnerable populations? You mentioned the elderly are being targeted, and how is that shaping FINRA's priorities?
Yeah, I think that's a tough question. It's like asking who your favorite kid is. It's like, what's my favorite scam? There are so many out there that are having this outsized impact. It depends on where you're looking and what you're focused on. I think that if you ask people that are working the small cap fraud issue, the account takeover issue every single day, they're going to say, yeah, that's the biggest thing that we're seeing. Where it's hard, you have to take that quick action. you're gonna, if you ask people who are operating in the crypto space, right? Like it's still a bit of a there's still a journey to kind of get to the level of security that we've seen in other aspects of our industry. So they're going to say that. I think the easy answer, not to be lazy with it, but because we're all just dealing with it every day, is how we've seen AI change the threat environment. The rise of generative AI and then moving into agentic AI. Just again, that gets to the lowering the barrier of entry for the individual threat actor when it comes to carrying out scams. We used to, when we talk about things like elder fraud and social engineering, the ability to have the voice of a loved one or a trusted individual or a photo or a video of them can make it really hard for anybody to discern, but especially the senior population that is not as used to dealing in that space. So if I had to pick one favorite threat, I think it's how threat actors are leveraging AI for nefarious purposes to carry out their scams. It just makes it a lot easier for a lot more people to get into the business.
Yeah, I mean, it's been sad to see, and we've seen that rise, right? And there was a little bit of a lull in ransomware attacks, and now it seems like it's back up again. And I agree with you. AI is just making it doing the exact opposite of what we were trying to do at the FBI, right? Is bring pain to the adversary and increase the barrier to entry. So that actually really dovetails well into the next question I want to ask you. So in this environment, like what's effective collaboration between FINRA, these firms, these regulatory, you're a regulatory agency, and then law enforcement, right? Because we've got to work together to help combat this.
Yeah, I think for me, it's developing trust. Because at the end of the day, we are a regulatory organization, right? We're not a government entity. We're a self-regulatory organization for the broker-dealer industry. But for years and years and years, throughout our existence, we have been looked at by our member firms as a regulator. For positive and in some cases that there are elements of that don't sit well with firms when it comes to voluntarily sharing. And so that's something I think it's worth messaging. The FIFC and all this collaboration I'm talking about is 100% voluntary. It is not something that's rule-based. It's not something that's compelled. The sharing of intelligence, we're asking our firms to take a look and say, hey, if you see something that could help others, we're asking you to share it. And we're also saying, like, we're not looking at it through the traditional FINRA regulatory lens. We're looking at it through the lens of good faith intelligence sharing to help everybody combat the scams and fraud and cyber threats that we're seeing. And so really, at the end of the day, it's going to be developing a greater trust across members, FINRA member firms, FINRA, and then again with our partners in government. And moving to that space, I think we've done a really great job as an organization developing relationships with the right agencies to help take these threats when we see them to kind of that next level of disruption, right? And so a member firm sees a threat manifesting. Maybe they're able. We'll go back to the cyber example. Maybe they're able to get some really strong IOCs for indication of compromise for a particular threat actor or whatever we want to, ransomware group, whatever, right? And they share that with us. Well, it's great for us to have, but as long as everybody's comfortable with it, right? And we're treating information that this goes to building trust, right? We're not going to share things outside of our organization that we absolutely don't have to without a conversation happening with those who shared it with us. But I think the ultimate goal would be, let's get that information into the hands of the FBI, into the hands of CISA, into the hands of the folks that can actually do something about it and carry out some measure of action, or at least help them move their investigations along. Because one of the things that we're talking about here, we're not talking about, again, some of that traditional regulatory work that FINRA does. It's of course still ongoing in our organization as our core mission set. But this mission set, we're looking at those threat actors. We're looking at the bad guys out there because they're not doing any of us any good. And I think it's an easy thing to rally around, work together, and start to build more true substantive action against them collectively as an industry.
That makes sense. So for CISAs and fraud leaders and risk officers, at broker dealers, what are the top one or two things that they should prioritize to stay ahead of this blended fraud threat? And increasingly making it's easier, right? With AI, they're becoming more sophisticated, more lifelike, more real, right?
Yeah, I think it's there are the obvious answers, right? Like stay up to date on your patches. Make sure that you've got trusted intel feeds coming in and informing your organization. Stay agile against the threats. But I think what I would want to say on that is kind of in the spirit of what we're doing here at the FIFC, we're like and at FINRA, I think we're looking at our organization a little bit differently. We're kind of shaking some of the kind of old traditions for our organization and saying, hey, there's more that we can do in this space if we dedicate some resource toward it and actually drive toward collaboration as the main purpose and goal. So I think the best thing you could possibly do if you're a FINRA member firm is once we go live early next year with the FIFC is join the FIFC, of course. But aside from that, it's start thinking about who your partners are. Not just your traditional partners, not just partners in your own particular sector. Think about who your government partners are. Think about who your private sector partners are. There are the FIFC is not the only organization out there that is centered around cyber and fraud threat sharing and threat intelligence. Think about all the players in the space, what roles they play, and how they can be helpful to your organization. I think it's really, really important to take time because these threats are very tactical. They're very fast moving. We spend a lot of time really, really focused on that fire today, especially if you're a CISO, you're a cyber defense team, right? It's really, really hard to get kind of poke your head up out of the foxhole, look around and see what's happening around you. I think it's really, really important to stay in tuned on what your strategic advantages are. And when we look at how we're approaching these threats, the greatest strategic advantage are leveraging the resources, the capabilities, and the work that partners are doing in the space, and kind of break down some of those traditional barriers that exist, and think about, hey, yeah, maybe this company that over here to my left is a competitor, but CISO to CISO, cyber defender to cyber defender, we're fighting against the same thing, and there's no competitive advantage by not working together on that, right? So I think really, really hyper focus on understanding all of the actors who can be helpful to the work that you are doing out there. There are great vendors out there, not just traditional threat intelligence vendors and other security vendors, but really like your partners in the space, in your sector, outside of your sector, in government, self-regulatory organizations like FINRA, newcomers to this space to a degree, but thinking outside of the box really makes a difference when it comes to getting after these threat actors, and trying to get a step ahead of them rather than chasing them every day.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as we bring this to a close, what is success going to look like if you take a step back 2 years from now? How do you see this role evolving as threats and technology continue to change?
Yeah, I think it comes back to what I just said about trying to get ourselves ahead of these threat actors a little bit. At the end of the day, what I want the role of the FIFC to be in our industry, right? For our member firms at FINRA and for our partners that we're working with every day, is I'd like us to be essentially a best-in-class information sharing center for our industry, right? I want our member firms to think about the FIFC when they're dealing with a threat. When they see a threat, I want them to think, hey, we've got to share this with FINRA. We've got to share this with the FIFC. Why? Not because we said so, right? It's a different type of reason, but because over the past looking to the future, over the next couple of years, we've had some substantive wins. We've been able to change the speed at which we share information so that information becomes intelligence and becomes actionable intelligence. We're able to identify this scam or this ATO or whatever it is as it's happening and as it's manifesting, and potentially stop it, or at least empower our firms to be more agile and capable of stopping it through the work that we do here. So I want us to be able to make a true substantive impact in the cyber and fraud threat ecosystem. Like I said, empower our member firms and empower our partners through the leveraging of our resources here and some really, great information that we've developed and expertise that we've developed over 85 years as an organization, and really leverage that to make a difference, reduce the scams, reduce the severity of the scams, reduce the cyber incidents and impacts of those incidents that we see in our industry. There's no way to do that without a focus on building trust, sharing information, and like I said, just aggressively collaborating in this space.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Dave, thanks so much for taking the time and really giving us an inside look into the Fusion Center that you're launching early next year. Please keep us posted on the launch date, and we'll be able to get out to our audience and let them know when you actually go live. And we really want this to be a successful venture for you. So it would be great. Maybe we can get an update 6 months to a year from now on how the center is doing. And I want to thank. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. I was going to say thanks so much, Val. I certainly will. I would say also for those that are interested, you're welcome to contact me if you're looking to participate in the FIFC. If you hadn't heard about it yet and you want to learn more, I'd also say look at FINRA on LinkedIn. We're pushing a lot of this there, so you'll get updates certainly as we get closer to launch from FINRA via LinkedIn and other media.
And do you have your own website, or is it going to be through FINRA?
So right now we don't have our own website. It will be through FINRA, but there'll be a landing page on the FINRA.org website for the FIFC. We just it has not been established yet because we haven't launched it yet. But once we get there, and that'll all be pushed out through our social media and through press release and other things. So keep a lookout over the next 60 days or so, 60 to 90 days as we get closer to launch to see all those things starting to pop up.
No, we're excited, and we're really hoping that it's a successful launch and it's a successful endeavor for you and for FINRA. And thanks again, Dave, and all of you who have joined us today for this conversation. And we look forward to seeing you at other future events with ICIT. Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of the afternoon. See ya. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks.